Mamachka. By the way, Chet, it's mamachka. It means
Yeah, that's
mom.
right. Okay, so let me be brief. First, I came to Israel October 4. October, you understand what happened on the 7th. On the 9th, we were trying to leave for Turkey. All day airport. Turkey wouldn't take the planes from Israel. On the 14th, State Department took us out to Greece, and from then we came home. I have heard the sirens. Not the first time. First time I was beneath July 2014, if you remember what was happening at that time. Now, uh, I felt the sirens first time in my life, 2014. Now, these groups, Palestinian groups, which are against Israel, actually, they're pro Hamas, pro terrorism, would be a great idea while they're walking, which is walking is good, and breathing of fresh air is fantastic. But if somebody started the sirens at the same time, I wonder what would have happened to them, okay? And we didn't do it. Biden, if he doesn't do anything about these Palestinian groups, their time will come soon, very soon, that all of the Jews must leave Europe and probably United States of America. I I'm kind of older. Safe, not safe, doesn't matter. But I do have children, grandchildren, and I'm scared for them because they've been raised in loving, nice, warming environment without hate, and they don't know how to deal with that. And I'll tell you, my girls went to Berkeley, so I was very worried. Now, another thing: who pays for all of that? Who buses them in? Who finances the whole thing? Where are the flags coming from? Remember, attack happened on the 7th of October. On the 8th of October, the whole world was ready with the buses, with the flags. Everybody knew. Do not fool yourself. Everybody knew, whoever was supposed to know, whoever the groups were supposed, they knew about the attack. I believe I'm the only person in Israelis who did not know. We're not fools. We understand that it was prepared and everybody was prepared. You do not print a flag in a day. You do not have all of the buses arranged in a day. I don't understand why England allows all of that. But you have to ask yourself a question. If England and France allows all of these atrocities happen, then they do want Jews to leave. There is no reason to stay there anymore. And if Biden doesn't take care of this problem here, we all will be selling our houses, our businesses, leaving our jobs. And I'll tell you, we have good jobs, thank God, and good businesses. And we will leave. And let America deal with that because, at this moment, you do not choose this side because you want somebody to vote for you. You choose either good or evil. And that's basically everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me now go to Mary.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to say that when I was growing up, Israel was always the hero. I was 12 years old when I watched what was happening in the Munich Olympics, glued to the TV like most of the world, and it terrified me. I lived through PLO hijackings being televised. I watched the whole raid on Entebbe happening. I lived in Southern California in 1990. I was dating actually a young man who called himself a tiny Palestinian terrorist, and he would wear a T-shirt that talked about Islam taking over from LA to Chicago to New York. And that was back in 1990. So I don't know what's happened to my country. I do know that I'm scared that you could see these things being organized on college campuses, that there's this hate, and I don't understand it because when I was growing up, Israel was the hero. And I just wanted to say that I love Israel. I stand with Israel. And I don't know what I can do for my own little portion of the world, but I'm praying for you guys. And God bless you. Please, please take care.
Hey, Mary, if I can give you a little bit of optimism, sometimes, and that's the goal of what they're doing, but sometimes the loud, very, very, very tiny in terms of overall percentage of the country minority can give the wrong impression of what the country thinks as a whole. So I saw it's now a couple weeks old, but I doubt it's changed dramatically. I saw polling after these attacks happened from a couple major pollsters. Quinnipiac, I think, was one, and Economist, YouGov was another, and they showed that after these attacks, the pro-Israel sentiment in America was the highest that it's been since 9/11. It was like more than 60-something% of people sympathized with the excuse me, sorry, with the Israelis, and the pro-Palestinian sentiment was down to the lowest that it's been also in many years. So, I just want to give you a little bit of hope that the goal of what these people are trying to do is to obscure that fact. Normal people look at people who tear down posters of kidnapped children, and people who say, that we want to kill A, B, C, or D group, and say you people are effing nuts, and they want nothing to do with them. Now, we still have to combat it. There's big problems in the education system, huge problems. But the good news is that they're now being revealed for the world to see. Whereas before, I think people were kind of sleeping through it. So there is a lot of hope out there. So I want you to hopefully keep that hope in your heart as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me now go to Moshe.
Sorry, I was blocking that. I'm sure you're seeing it too. All those bots tagging us. So I was, blocking them all. Sorry. Kind of lost my train of thought. But to build on what AB is saying, there's definitely a distortion between and even with the protests. I mean, a lot of them, yeah, there are some fundamentalists, but there's also a lot of people that are just either sheep that are following, or more to the point, paid protesters that this is literally their day job. And so they, no matter what the cause is, they show up because they're getting whatever it is, $150, $200 a day to be there. And so it definitely is meant to skew the numbers. Man, there was something somebody said before that I was going to reply to, and I just lost my train of thought trying to block all these bots. Yeah, if it's okay, could you come back to me, because I lost my train of thought? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but you actually just made the case in point of just how much they're trying to mess with our heads and how easily it can happen. Neely, let me go to you.
Yeah, just to respond about England. I don't need to tell everyone that it's a very important weekend in London, specifically in London. There are other smaller gatherings through the country, but the biggest one's going to be down there. It's something we do every year. People are very patriotic in terms of remembering the war dead, and it's a very special couple of days. So there's usually, we just get on with it. People just do it, and that's it. There's the 2-minute silence and all the rest of it. But a lot of people are talking in groups, in WhatsApp groups, chats amongst each other. They're very concerned about what's going to be happening tomorrow, and we all know why. And there's now this big wrangling between our Home Secretary and the police, because she's basically called them out. She's actually said about them what the majority of decent British people are saying, that we have a weak police force. We have a police force that stands by and watches hate marches on our streets, does very, very little. And this is the same police that would, arrest somebody for not wearing a mask, or going into Tesco's without a mask on, or not having it, not abiding by the COVID rules. They were very, very good with that. But but when it's something as serious as this, they just kind of stand by and do very little. So people are worried about that. Then you've also got the factor of trying to protect our cenotaphs and our public buildings, and the event itself. So somebody was asking, how does it feel in Britain? I think everybody this week has been building up to tomorrow, and we are all really nervous about what's going to happen. So it's a very, very scary time for people. And a lot of people, like myself, just refuse to go anywhere near London, because that's where the majority of these things are happening. A lot of people are going to go to London tomorrow. So we hope that it passes by peacefully without incident, but nobody really believes that that's going to happen. So we'll have to wait and see.
And concerningly too, I mean, I'm not sure this is quite confirmed yet, but there does look like there might be some connection to the Angela Birdie that we saw in USC, and the mayor of Richmond, who has the same last name. And through some online searching, there does appear to be at least some correlation between the two. Whether that gets confirmed or not, either way, yeah, hopefully we see something more from USC, or if it is her daughter, we see something from the mayor of Richmond. Let me now go to Daniel, your co-host. You don't have to hear hand raised. What are you doing? You polite.
Just fair enough. I could throw it. Yeah. On this note, in Toronto, I mean, I'm going to be spending my day just monitoring the cenotaph in downtown Toronto, recording anything there. I mean, there are things that are important to do, and the reason is because let's be honest, who we're fighting right now. Yes, there's a neo-Marxist contingent among this that hates Israel. That's number two. The number one enemy right now is Islamism, and we have to stop treating Islamists as if they think about the conflict and life the same way that we do in the West. For them, things are about symbols, intimidation. Again, there is a reason why our protest, which was legal, wasn't even a protest, our event at Queen's Park, the Ontario legislature, when we were told that 4,000 Palestinians waving Hamas flags were illegally coming down to go stand in Queen's Park, we said, no, we're not moving, even though the police tried to move us and, acquiesced to the mob, even though we had every legal right to be there, we forced them to do their jobs. Now, that was because there were actual politicians standing with us at the time, so they were forced to. But still, these symbols are important to Islamists. And in order to win this war, they must be humiliated. Because if October 7th, 2024 rolls around and there is no win, across the Islamic world, October 7th will be a holiday. And it will be a holiday and a call to action. And we all know what that implies. And Israel's sort of faced this before. Look at the Yom Kippur War, right? Egypt still celebrates the Yom Kippur War as this great victory. What the fuck did they do? What, they crossed the canal on a surprise attack and then got brutally beaten back and pushed into Egypt? Now, at the end of the Yom Kippur War, half the Egyptian army was surrounded in the south of Sinai, pinned against the water, surrounded on all sides. The Israelis had taken away the Egyptian air defenses. So Israel could have wiped out half the Egyptian army in a few hours. A massacre that every Egyptian would still feel today. Everyone would have a cousin or an uncle or a grandfather who died in that army. It would be a scar. Then Israel could have rolled on to Cairo, either sacked the city, raised the Israeli flag, done whatever. And we chose not to. We chose our own humanity. We thought that if we had them by the throat and then let them up, they would see our humanity and embrace us in peace. They did not. They celebrate their great victory of crossing the canal still, and they aspire to do it again. Right? This is the mentality. So I go back to something beautiful I saw the other day. The mosques in Gaza praying, blasting the Shema. This is very important. And Israel can say, oh, it's to let the hostages know that we're coming. And that's an element too. The more important thing is Gaza must be humiliated. The Islamists must be humiliated. Every mosque must play the Shema 5 times a day. 5 times a day, the Shema should be playing over Gaza to let them know that we are their daddy. And that every time they mess with us, we will humiliate them. And you see this. All the terrorist brigades are the Al-Aqsa Brigade, Al-Aqsa this, Al-Aqsa that. We have no desire to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. In fact, we gave it to the Islamic Wafd of Jordan. And because of that kindness, it is constantly weaponized against us. The threat that they've created of the destruction of Al-Aqsa, it's only been used to hurt us further. Every time we show them humanity, they get worse. And we have to start treating them like Islamists. And I've never been in favor of, destroying the Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Dome of the Rock. I think it's a bad thing to do, from my perspective. But we're now at the point where I'm legitimately trying to figure out in my own mind. So I'm not putting any opinion, but I'm thinking if Israel were to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque tomorrow, I think there's a legitimate case to be made that this would be a step towards peace. Just getting it over with, humiliating them, destroying their whole thing, and saying, no, this is what you do to everyone else. You destroy their temples, and you put your thing on top of it. When you mess with us, your Islamic pride suffers, and that's a heavy thing to talk about, and it's going to get a lot of us in trouble. But we have to at least understand who we are dealing with. We are not dealing with angry Norwegians and disaffected Swedes or the people in Amsterdam who no. This is not people who can be reasoned with words. They need actions and symbols. And I it's going to be hard to make the case to a lot of the Jewish people, but in order to win this war and create a system of peace and stability for both Israelis and Arabs and Palestinians and Gaza, whatever, they need to be humiliated and treated like Islamists and lose in a way that Islamists would care about. There's a reason why the Islamists are not crying about the mosque being turned into using for Jewish prayer. You think they would go insane about that. You think they would go absolutely ballistic with whole Al-Aqsa thing. Conspicuously, they're quite quiet. Why? Because they're deeply, deeply ashamed and humiliated by that action. And that's important. So I don't know where this rant leads to, but I thought it was important to just throw that idea out there that, listen, every time we've spared them, every time we've chosen to do the right thing, every time we've chosen kindness and humanity, it has been weaponized against us. Every single time. And there at some point, the naivety to continue down that path will only lead to more war and destruction. And it's a tragedy because it means we have to compromise on our values. It's the golden ear. We can forgive them for killing our children. We can't forgive them for making us kill theirs.
Well, it's
And
like this issue in the leftist ideology that kind of cropped up over the I don't know, past several decades into the idea of you just love anything, including hate, and if you love hate, well, what you end up doing is you allow hate to propagate, and it becomes even worse, like we've seen with Hamas, right? And that's exactly what you're saying, right? Like you showed humanity, but you showed humanity at the wrong times to the wrong people, if that makes any sense, right? And that's the issue. Like
yeah,
Hamas got
that's what I'm
shown.
saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, like my key on all the things, no half measures. Half measures will never work. So whatever you have to do, you have to do it. And it's war, and wars are brutal, and wars are terrible, and no one comes out of a war with clean hands. But we didn't start the war, but we're going to have to finish it.
100% on point. Let me go to Sin City now. I haven't seen you in a bit, my brother. Good to see you again. Welcome to the stage. I cannot hear him. Can anyone else hear him? He unmiked. No, okay, no one else can hear. Moshe, I'm going to go to you. Sin, if you're having any mic issues, just drop down. I'll bring you right back up. Moshe, go ahead.
I just wanted to build on what Daniel was saying. Actually, I thought, as I was waiting, I thought of another point, which is Lebanon, because of course, Israel withdrew from southern Lebanon, and that's also been punished with more war. I mean, there's been nothing, there's been no point, and ironically, the one country that Israel never gave anything back to was Syria, and Syria, well, they'll lob a couple of things here and there, mostly just kind of neutered in their approach to Israel because they've never experienced any kind of kindness from Israel, and they know. And then to his point, and this is something I've never had anybody explain to me. What is, other than the fact that most Palestinians don't know the difference between Dome of the Rock and Al Aqsa, and they don't because every time they post a picture about Al Aqsa, there's a picture of Dome of the Rock, which really makes you wonder how committed they are to Islam if they don't know which one's a mosque and which one is. I don't even, I mean, I've never fully had anybody explain to me what exactly Dome of the Rock is and why it is important to, I mean, like, symbolically, I guess, yes, but I mean, it's not a religious context. There's no religious context to Dome of the Rock. And, you know, I don't know. Like, I never really thought about it, but as Daniel described it, I think that could be, without even destroying a mosque, because I mean, nobody seems to know the difference anyway. You could possibly deal with Dome of the Rock, and then also every picture of, uh, you know, Jerusalem would be significantly different, for one thing. But I was kind of curious, Daniel's thoughts about the symbolism, maybe dealing with that, since it's one, not a mosque, and two, just to see what the Palestinian response would be, since they don't seem to know it's not actually Al Aqsa.
So my thing on the one point I didn't make. So one, I think today Israel should take control of the area away from the Islamic Wafik and just say, no, it's ours now.
I agree.
Right. right? So that's step one, and see where it goes. Now, the other point I wanted to make that I forgot is, there'll be anger and backlash. Aren't we at 100% right now? We saw October 7th. How much more radical could these people get? You saw the videos. I didn't see every single video. I saw enough of them chanting Allahu Akbar, decapitating people, lighting them on fire, raping, in the utter glee. They're at maximum Jew hatred right now. There's literally nothing we could do to make them hate us more. We're at the maximum. So anyone saying, "Oh, if you do this, the bombing of Israel, the bombing of Gaza will just create more terrorists," you see what's on in these kindergartens before October 7th. You see the only time Hamas militants ever wear a uniform is when they're 4 to 6 years old, acting out a kidnapping or a genocide or whatever it is they do. We're at maximum Jew hatred. There's literally nothing we could do to make them hate us more. So once you accept that, you have to move forward. And I'm a big fan of saying things out loud that will make sure I'll never be able to run for office. That's one of my favorite pastimes, to make sure people stop asking me to run for things. But we're at maximum Jew hatred right now. Absolute maximum Jew
Come
hatred.
on, Daniel. You could be our future Rashida Tlaib. Hold out hope. Things might change. You might be able to run in the future.
My
I mean,
colleague Wyatt
if they
Claypool is
can,
running for office in Canada. He'll be good enough.
if,
He also has no filter. So we do
if
have someone running for federal leadership in 2025 who will say these things under parliamentary immunity in Canada. So
Who,
Calgary,
are you talking
Signal
about?
Hill.
Who did you mention?
Wyatt Claypool is running for Conservative Party in Signal Hill, Calgary. So if you're in Calgary,
Oh,
Signal
okay.
Hill,
Nice.
and you
Nice.
want someone who will say these things in under the protection of the Canadian Parliament, he isn't even Jewish. He's just morally incorruptible. And trust me, I've tried.
You
He's running. I'm not.
you don't want to be the Canadian Ben Gvir?
No, I don't. I like yelling at the government, not being part of the government.
By the way, do you remember? I'm asking this sarcastically, Daniel. Do you remember and I mentioned this yesterday in a stealth space. Do you remember the argument I asked sarcastically that be careful how many how you treat the Nazi Germany, because for every Nazi you kill, you'll create 3 more Nazis. Be careful dealing with Imperial Japan. Don't drop the nukes on them, because for every person you kill in Japan, you're creating 3 more. Or did they crush their enemy, the West, the Allies, grind them to dust, occupy them, denazify them, and then turn them free?
You're right. I know it's sarcastic, but I mean, I agree with whatever the implied assertions are there.
let me now go to Yum.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the West Bank and Gaza are completely different places, and they are ruled by different entities. I understand, and there is a lot of hate towards Israel in the West Bank as well. I just want to say there are many Muslims that were killed on October 7th as well. Hamas doesn't care who they kill. They just went and shot whoever they saw. So on last year and the year before that, anytime that rockets were fired towards Israel from Gaza, there were many outrages on the streets, also in the West Bank. And now we see quiet. Everything is quiet. And there is a reason for that, because Hamas just went above and beyond everything that even the Muslims at the West Bank could just stand behind. So it's important to take that also in consideration with everything else, that this I understand where it's coming from. I understand the hatred towards the Jews coming from all places. I understand everything. I'm just saying that it's important to take that into consideration as well, because Hamas are different, are worse.
Something I'm seeing right now. I'd be interested to know from any of our English friends here. This is coming from Richard Goldberg. Israel Warren reposted this, saying Richie Sunak won't punish the IRGC for setting up a terror network in the UK, but he might punish the Home Secretary for condemning anti-Semitism. Britain has serious problems. I hadn't heard about this happening. Nili, have you heard about this?
No, actually, that's the first I've heard. I don't know who Richard Goldberg is. This doesn't really make sense to me. That he would punish the Home Secretary for condemning anti-Semitism when he condemned it himself. I think there might be an issue with what I mentioned earlier, that the Home Secretary is in a bit of a wrangle with the police. There may be something there, but I do not agree or believe, or I just doesn't make any logical sense that he would even consider punishing the Home Secretary for condemning anti-Semitism. That he's,
Yeah,
like
this
I
is
said,
obviously his spin on the story. I think it does have to do with the fight with the Met police commissioner, who is whatever, a coward. But yeah, we should probably find the original story that he's referring to. I guess.
yeah, I
Gavin,
think
I see Gavin's hands raised. I know you're a fellow Brit there.
Yeah, there's a big update on the BBC website just about 40 minutes ago. Essentially, the government has sided with Suella Braverman and overruled the Met Police. There's going to be cordon zones around the Cenotaph US Embassy and the Israeli Embassy tomorrow. And if anyone comes near, they're going to be arrested on site. People are also going to not be allowed to wear masks. Anyone wearing a mask around those areas, even if you don't enter the exclusion zone, you'll be arrested on site. And effectively, the government has sided behind Suella Braverman and her comments and hung the Met Police head out to dry.
Part of me just cracked up a little bit of the thought that now the UK has gone from having to have the edict out that people would be arrested if they didn't have masks on to where if you do have a
Yeah,
mask
by the
on.
way, another shitty legacy of COVID. Another shitty legacy of COVID that people wear
uh,
masks everywhere.
yeah, for an aerosol virus made perfect sense. Kirk,
Quickly, two
let's
other
go
two
to
other
you.
things I've
Oh
noticed.
yes.
There
Yeah.
got traffic police going to be out in force to prevent convoys of cars or buses carrying pro-Palestinian protesters from passing through Jewish communities. And the
Oh.
British Transport Police will be protecting poppy sellers at all underground and overground stations. So they're finally taking this extremely seriously.
It's about damn time, and I hope we start to see something like this happen in the U.S. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't heard mayors come out and say what they're going to do across large, American cities that have mostly turned into, urban nightmares and places you don't really want to live in anymore. And unfortunately, we're not seeing enough come out from governors either, which should be another sign, right? And we're seeing comments out from senators and Congress people, but they have some limited authority. I'd like to see
By the
more
way,
vocal legislation.
chat, we could add poppy sellers to hostage posters as things that would surreal indications how effed up our world is, that we would never thought you would have to protect posters of hostages or poppy sellers, because who hates a poppy seller, right? But apparently, our societies in their wisdom decided that we want to promote people who hate poppy sellers.
I mean,
and
you let this keep going far enough, and eventually, it's going to be where you're going to have to protect people that have just stands with American flags on them. For fuck's sake! I mean, it's getting ridiculous. And then someone's going to say, "Well, it's their peaceful right to protest against the American flags." All right, let me go to Kirk.
Yeah, thank you. This war with Hamas will be a long war, but it will come and go. And I think the key of what it exposed, and I actually agree here with Daniel on a lot of things, as he knows. Um, Israel has to take this war as far as it needs to make sure that it becomes the dominant player not to fuck with. Sorry for my language in the Middle East, and that anyone else thinking of doing anything with them will have to think long and hard and really look into Gaza as an example how far Israel will have to go, or into Lebanon with Hezbollah. I have no doubt that the U.S. will enter the war soon enough. There's only so many soldiers that can keep getting bombed, and one contractor has already died. Um, but if nothing else, I really hope that this war is exposed as how many absolutely Western hating Islamists there are in the Western world now. And this is going to be a huge problem from the West. The war will come off, Israel will be stronger, but the West will still have to deal with all those people and every flare up. And they'll have to deal with them until those people will not have to ask for permission to be dealt with anymore, because their population is growing. They're having more kids. They're immigrating legally and illegally by the millions into Europe, from Africa, from I'm sure to 1.7 million from Afghanistan that were kicked out by Pakistan. A lot of them will make their way into Europe, and this is going to be a huge generational issue for Europe until someone will be brave enough to realize and wake up on it. Because we have politicians on the left and the right. Some hate Israel, but the politicians that are silent on either way are just as a big of a problem, because the silence is what allowing them to do and perform and be barbaric and yell in the streets. And I think there are too many delusional politicians who are thinking short term, too many delusional citizens who think short term. They think this will just go away eventually if they just let them vent out for a couple weeks. It will not go away. This will be a generational issue.
Well, and indeed, you raised some critical points there. Specifically, what I'm thinking about is uh, the openness that we've allowed, not just on borders, but our concept of technology and everything else, to an extreme degree, and with the thought-stopping cliche that everything that questions this is xenophobia automatically. And I was thinking to myself, too, that one of the weird things about this is, well, you could metaphorically compare it to calling it software phobic to want antivirus software on your computer that blocks bad software from getting onto your device. But the funny thing is, we've already seen an example of that already happen with TikTok being something that people refuse to get rid of, at a national and state level across this country, even though it's spyware, because of this term xenophobia, which has been used so much to basically shut down any rational arguments or discussions about who we let into our homes. It doesn't make any sense. You're not just going to let anyone to your home. Why are you going to let anyone onto the land that gets to your home? And without proper questioning of this, we've allowed way too much people that are essentially literally Islamist jihadists or supporters of such movements, which can be able to make and move so quickly the RGC's message throughout the United States, which is quite concerning at this level.
And let's remember, those countries, those people that they come from, those are the least tolerable countries to anyone else but Muslims by themselves, anywhere in the world. All those Islamic countries don't have Christians, they don't have Jews, they don't have anyone else, because they kill or chase them out, right? And then they come to our countries and expect the opposite of how they are, until they won't have to ask anymore.
Let me now go to Megaskari.
I want to say hi, Durut Bashama, Shabbat Shalom, to everybody that is suffering from the Islamic jihadists. Couple of points that I decided to come up and say. The first of all is that America is the melting pot. 21 years ago, when I came to US, I started listening to the radio. I knew some English, but I needed to learn American English. Guess what? I'm a product of Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, a little bit of Michael Savage, if you know that guy. So I was born in a country, Kirk, that lived with Jewish, Christians, Armenians, and different type of the religion people for thousands of years. We had no problem with ethnicity, with the religious people or whatever. As an Iranian, we lived together for many, many centuries, peaceful. We had a mosque that it's right by the church. We had Jewish people. Uh, Habib Lokmanian, one of the Jewish investors in Iran that did a lot of good things for Iranians, for his fellow citizens. But let me tell you what, the melting pot in the US is forgotten. When you have a PhD student at UCLA ripping off a kid picture, I don't care what it is. It's a kid picture and it's missing, kidnapped, whatever. You're ripping off a kid picture of the your university that you study PhD. This is the future of our country, right? We have the wife of an elected official will come do that in the middle of the street, rip it off. Um, what led us to this? Because the melting pot has forgotten. We have a mosque in Cologne in Germany, right? That allow azan. What is azan? It's calling for prayers for 5 times a day. Can you believe that? We after 9/11, we as Americans, instead of going and teaching the people that stop being fanatic, stop being radicals, we building mosques. Look at the Michigan. Michigan, Detroit, and Michigan has a lot of mosques that the main of them is running by Islamic Republic. Can you believe that? Imam of the mosque coming from Iran. Unfortunately, I hate to say that my country is name is Islamic Republic. But look, as Daniel said, we need to humiliate these people, not Muslims, not Muslims. As Muslim has a right, as Jewish has a right, as Christian has a right, and whoever you don't believe in God, you have a right. Because we look at it as a citizens, we don't look at it as what your ethnicity, what's your origin, or what's your religion, right? So these symbols, kafiyah, jafiyah, right? Look at that. People wearing those as a modest thing. This is wrong. We need to get back to the melting pot. We need to teach these kids that what's going on in your home, which the parents pretty much they bring from their Islamic fanatics, radical beliefs, they bring them to US and close the doors and leaving there. They're sending the kids outside, going to school, sitting with the girls, and having a girlfriend is really, really bad for them. So they have two things. They have one outside, one inside. You know what comes out of that? Sleeper cells that comes out and have a Palestinian flag, right? So this is the problem in US, and I feel it. I've seen it in Germany that in 2015, 2015, Angela Merkel led to almost 2 million Syrians go there. And then immediately in that Christmas, they uh, prosecute a couple of them for raping women in the middle of the street, the German years. So the world didn't listen to us for more than 45 years, Iranians. Okay. But now it's time. Look, we have this past year. Why we talk about Iran? Because every single you guys, when you talk about the Islamic jihadis and the fanatics, Iran comes into place, right? So that's why we talk about Iran. So these past 14 months, we had a revolution in Iran. We have people in U.S. I name one of them is Masih Ali-Najad. A lot of support from the Congress, a lot of support from Americans, right? Look at the 3 weeks ago. She has a post with the little girl in a wheelchair having a kafiyeh. What do you think about that? The people that supported Masih Ali-Najad, come tell me right now, why is she has a kafiyeh in the middle of right after October 7th? So we doing it wrong. As American, as a Westerners, we are not supporting the right people to remove the fanatics and radicals from the power, especially in Middle East and Iran. We have our king Reza Pahlavi. He was in Israel a couple of months ago. He met with Bibi, with his wife and our queen, went there and respected. They went to the Western Wall. And the other hand, we have somebody that has a kafiyeh and She goes to the Congress. See, this is the problem. Western, please wake up. Iranian kingdom is the answer to remove the Islamic regime. Iranians need be heard, not from Masih al-Nijad, from Iranian people, from Iranians that support freedom of all kind. That's what we had 3,000 years ago. That's what we need right now. Thank you so much.
Javed Shah. I think this is a really important point that goes to what I've been saying about the Middle East. You cannot look at the Middle East or other countries, under the Western lens. And I can say this from a bit of experience. Like I've been rather successful in Indian media over the last few months. Why? Because I look at India as India and treat them as Indians and not and their own unique people. We have to. One of the ways that the Islamic Republic has been able to take advantage of us is create, fake, they would call them reformist groups or quasi-reformists who try and impose Western structures on non-Western nations and manipulate us that way by turning Iran into a sort of another front of the American culture war when that just doesn't apply. It just does not compute. It does not apply. And under the Shah, Iran was a democracy. It didn't run the same way we did, but they voted for a parliament. A parliament then voted for a prime minister, and then the king or the Shah had certain powers constitutionally to balance that out. That was the way it ran. So the Iranian monarchy is not, as strict as, let's say, a Saudi monarchy or Emirati one. It's sort of a monarchy. Canada is a monarchy. We're also a democracy. So this is what the people have been pushing there. For years I was convinced by one of my Iranian friends back in 2017 to shift us from a Republican to a monarchist when it came to Iran because they made a very good case. And this is, I think, a symptom of the outgrowth of what we have to stop doing as Westerners is treating non-Westerners as Westerners. And that doesn't mean treat them badly. It doesn't mean demean them or think they're less than us. But you have to accept people's differences and their similarities. Like there are similarities between us and the Iranian people, but there are also vast differences because they have 5,000 years of history, dating back to all the different dynasties in the Persian Empire. And if we don't acknowledge this and treat them as who they are, we're never going to find successful solutions. And that's the reality. I do know Ducato is in Iran. He's been very strident in fighting the Islamic regime. It might be good to go to him now if I can use my co-host powers there.
Absolutely.
So, hello, Daniel, and thank you, Chet. I love your spaces. I try to drop in. Internet, unfortunately, hasn't been cooperating with me very well lately. It's been a little kind of broken. What I wanted to mention is, first of all, breaking news that I just saw and I loved it is that the takeover of the Badr outpost and the Hamas Shati battalion and the elimination of about 150 terrorists in the terrorist stronghold of Hamas, which is great news. And I love how IDF is taking care of this with precision and with vigilance, and that's awesome. But I don't know your name. I think Monty, was it that you were talking? You are absolutely on point on a lot of things. One of the things that the Islamic regime has been doing very well in the past 44 years is that to tell the world lies that the Iranian people are like them and stand with them and their stupid ass ideology, which is absolutely not correct. And I see and I hear the outcry for Gaza and the innocents in Palestine. First of all, evidence that I'm seeing shows a very blurry line to me between Hamas and the people of Palestine. Second of all, if that distinction is there, why don't they make it clear? Why don't those who are outside the country and are protesting for a free Palestine don't say free Palestine from Hamas? Because that is what needs to be done. Freeing Palestine from Hamas. Israel is defending itself. If the Islamist terrorism such as Hezbollah and Hamas and all of the other proxies which are led and puppeteered by the Islamic Republic, Khamenei, IRGC, whatever you want to call them, don't stop, not only Israelis, Jews, and people of Israel won't be safe, no one will be safe. They get an atomic bomb, they're shooting Israel. They have the power, they will shoot anywhere, they will come for all of you because, as the Crown Prince beautifully puts, they're looking to take over the world with a new modern Shia Khalifa, quote unquote. That is what they want to do. They want to take over the world, they want to shove their ideology in everyone's faces because that's their way and they won't change. With that to say, I don't like generalizing, so I'm not saying that is all Muslims or that is Islam. No, I know a lot of level-headed Muslims that are not the same way. I think you are familiar with M, which is a great example of that. So while we are fighting against Islamic terrorism, we must not go to extremes ourselves, and we must look at the evidence wherever it is and be clear and concise and vigilant with our words. For example, not calling the Islamic Republic Iran, because Raisi himself said in one of his interviews regarding the $6 billion, that money is the Islamic Republic's money. His translator fixed it. But in Farsi, he said that money is the Islamic Republic's money, not the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Islamic Republic's money, and we will do with it what the hell ever we want. With that, I will stay and listen and answer any questions if there is any. Thank you for the mic.
Yeah, just something real quick. I wanted to break here that I saw across my wires from Reuters. Reuters witness saying that the U.S. Air Force's new B-21 Raider, or the Flying Wing bomber, has taken its first ever flight. So the B-21 is now in service, which brings a whole new level of FAFO to this operation if people want to start fucking around, because this is one impressive stealth bomber that is intended to basically, it's why the B1 is now mostly a conventional set, and now the B2 will basically be replaced by this, and the B21s and B52s is what you're going to see for the nuclear weapons, although this will also probably have some sort of conventional capacities as well.
Hey Ted, could I just flesh out what the Ducato said about the sort of the on the ground
Yes, go for it.
news? Not about the Islamic Republic of Iran, but in terms of what was happening in Gaza. So some more details. The IDF says their troops have captured key Hamas outposts, multiple outposts in Gaza City proper today, killing some 150 terrorist operatives in the process. The military said in recent days its 401st Brigade led an assault on the so-called Badr outpost, the main outpost of Hamas's so-called Al-Shati refugee camp battalion, located adjacent to civilian homes near the refugee camp. It says that during the raid on the post, troops destroyed military headquarters and rocket launching sites. Separate from that, the IDF says the 401st Brigade captured another Hamas outpost in the area and destroyed a weapons manufacturing plant, rocket launching positions, and tunnels. In a separate raid from those two, the IDF says the brigade battled Hamas gunmen at the Blue Beach Resort. And this so-called open-air prison has a place called the Blue Beach Resort on Gaza City's coast. It says some 30 terror operatives were holed up in the hotel, firing anti-tank missiles at the forces. The IDF says that in all, some 150 Hamas operatives were killed by the forces during the battles in the Al-Shati area.
All right, let me go to Yamna.
Yeah, some more details about that. Al-Shati camp is north to the Shifa hospital. So the official reports we usually get from the IDF are usually after the events happen. So what the IDF posted now is probably about the events of today. This is in complete connection to the reports that we get in real time from Gaza about the IDF operation at Shifa Hospital, the main headquarters of Hamas. IDF forces are coming in from the north. It is already known at this point. So it makes total sense that today there were battles in Al-Shati camp, and now they are in Al-Shifa Hospital. And hope that everyone gets back home safely, and Shabbat Shalom to the troops.
Thank you very much, John. Let me go to Marnie now. It's good to see you again.
Hi, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Thank you
Shalom.
again for these spaces. You guys are amazing. It's like being with a virtual family. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I know that someone had mentioned the Dome of the Rock. And it's just something I'm a bit familiar with. So I'll give you a bit of a brief. I think it's actually meaningful in regard to what we're going through right now. So in Islam, it's actually the third holiest site, right? We've got Mecca and Medina. I'm sure most of you have heard of. It is, though, one of the oldest mosques in Islam, Al-Aqsa. And in my opinion, it's a perfect analogy of how we approach our presence, basically, and like every peace deal we've ever proposed, which is whatever you give us is good enough as long as we keep the peace. Because for us, it actually is the holiest site in Judaism. And it's a symbol as well. I think everyone's familiar with that. There's that iconic image of the soldiers after the Six-Day War, right after they captured it. And historically, I listen. So much of this discourse that we have in these spaces is about our right and our history to this land, but like in the Bible, we would pilgrimage to this place 3 times a year on our three main holidays, and it just like our holiday in general, Judaism, we're tied to this land. All of our holidays are tied to the calendar and to the specific times of the year. We have our leap year every few years, so that all of the holidays fall at this in the same season at the same time. And beyond that, whether or not you've been to Israel, people, especially from the States, don't realize how ancient some of the artifacts are here, because it doesn't really exist in the States. These are things from thousands of years ago. Um, and it's undeniable. You've got like mosaics with pictures of menorahs and Hebrew, and you can actually crawl through the tunnels from the Bar Kokhba revolt. That's the story of Hanukkah. So if you come here, it's undisputed, and you can actually go visit all of these things because we protect and we preserve Israel, because the land is meaningful to us. It's beyond just territory, and it's worth protecting. Um, and what I really wanted to talk about here was just to keep our boys and men of the IDF in mind, the human aspect of it. I personally have 2 brothers that are reservists that were called up in the South and the North. And I know that a lot of people here like hearing personal accounts of what it's like when we run for shelter during sirens, so that you can actually connect to the humane experience of the war. And this is a really big part of it. So I want to honor and shout out all of these wives everywhere, all of my friends who have taken over like mommy duties just so that they can continue to go with daily life as uninterrupted as possible for children who know what's going on, and we're trying to shield them, and it's kind of difficult. And as well as every single Jewish mom out there who's just trying to go through daily life normally, knowing that her son is out there. And it's such a feeling of honor, and at the same time, it's this feeling of terror, of fear. Um, and a lot of these soldiers, they go dark. They go down to Gaza and they go dark. They're not allowed to communicate with anyone, and you don't know what's going on with them. You can't shoot them a text and say, "Hey, what's up? Sign of life." None of that. But they're, as much as it's so rewarding to watch them fight this meticulous war. I mean, it's extraordinary for me listening to analysis from some brilliant military strategic minds on these spaces, and they're so impressed with the way the operation is moving. And it's not like we had months in advance to plan this out. It's on the fly. I also really recommend, if you don't already, following the IDF pages, because they're so transparent, as far as showing the operations and explaining exactly what's going on. So if you kind of want to follow along, or if you have a hard time visualizing where Gaza is or where the Shifa hospital is, etc., I think that's incredibly beneficial as well. So just remember that these soldiers, you have this image sometimes of these like big, bad, tough IDF soldiers. These are kids. These are college age kids. Most of them have their whole life ahead of them. They're 21, 22. We have very close family friends that made Aliyah from LA about 4 days after the war broke out. And, people were a little bit amazed and thought that maybe they wouldn't come just because the war had just broken out. And they said even more so. They have 2 sons that are serving here. And just understand, especially if you're around the world and with all the demonstrations around the world, just remember that we're not equal. Our approach to life is not equal. So we value this country. That's all I'm trying to say. It's for us. It's not just territory. It's survival. And even if you're seeing some things on the news about protests against Bibi, it's not true at all. Most of it is just a lot of frustration being vented because people are so scared for the hostages, and there's dispute about how we should be going around that. But we are so united more than ever before. Volunteer work, because we really do believe that we're on this front line of freeing the world from evil. And even with these demonstrations, it only keeps fueling the reason why we need to be here. And just to my Jewish brothers and sisters all over the world, be inspired. We're not going anywhere, and you always have a home here. And I would recommend anyone, Jewish or not, come visit, because this country is so unique and the people here are so incredible, and it's worth protecting. And if you actually do want to reform Islam, then siding with Israel is the most powerful statement you can make to the world, that terrorism is unacceptable. That part of Islam is unacceptable. And so if you go to my page, by the way, I posted a video that was shared with me of a soldier from this morning. He's on the beach in Gaza, and you can just see this honor and gratitude in his face. He says the Shehechianu blessing, which is thanking God for help.